Day 7 of the Diddy trial is in the books, and this afternoon featured testimony from an escort named the Punisher, who allegedly serviced Cassie at Diddy's discretion. I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I'm down at the courthouse every single day providing you with an attorney's perspective as to how this case is unfolding. And this afternoon's testimony was a bit of a mixed bag for both the state and the defense. When we left off this morning, the escort, aka the Punisher, his name is Sherrod Hayes, was on the stand explaining about the first time that he engaged with Cassie and describing how he was simply putting oil on her and on himself, and she was putting oil on herself and on him. This afternoon it became clear that they were regularly engaging in unprotected sex at Diddy's discretion on the 8 to 12 occasions that he was called to provide services and entertainment, or as he would call them, sexy scenes for Diddy to watch the Punisher and Cassie to engage in. Now, from the state's perspective, they're probably pleased that some of his testimony included allegations that it was fairly routine, not all the time, that Cassie would be sighing and wincing at the continual directions in the middle of their encounters for her to move the candlelight or do something else, and that seemed to be expressing some sort of frustration with his continual interceding into the display that they were putting on there. He also described how Diddy would stand over him and it made him feel pressurized, and talked about one incident when he had been servicing Cassie and that Diddy threw down some condoms and directed him to go full penetration, and that he could not perform. And he said that was the last time that he was there, and he had concerns that he had disappointed them. Now, those are all good for the state, but the cross-examination conducted by Xavier Donaldson was fairly effective in several respects. Number one is he pointed out that the Punisher is an escort who did dancing for women in these different bachelorette parties on a fairly regular basis for 25 to 30 years. In fact, he even wrote a book called In Search of Freezer Meat. You heard that correctly. About his about his own personal erectile dysfunction. And that had come up on direct. The state tried taking the sting out of that by bringing up that book, because in the book he references Cassie and Diddy not by name, but allegedly as a married couple, a married wealthy couple, when he tells over some of his personal stories. So out of the 182-page book, he spent 6.5 pages talking about them. And in order to not have that blow up as some sort of surprise for the jury, that did come up on direct, and it was the first thing that Donaldson brought up when he went to cross. And he was talking about how when he was writing the book, that first and foremost that his dysfunction did not start as a result of Diddy, and that he was suffering the early effects of that before he ever met Cassie. But some of the strongest points that I felt Donaldson made this afternoon was when he was pointing out that you have experience engaging whether or not people are comfortable with the nature of the services you're providing. And he said, yes. And you take cues from reading the room, yes. And you also, when you were engaging with Cassie, did she ever look uncomfortable? And he said, no. And from the defense's perspective, that's a pretty serious win. In fact, he brought down, on one incident that he was talking about, it's the first time that he actually engaged in actual intercourse with her, that he had been pleasuring her, and that he felt a sense of satisfaction that she seemed to be enjoying it, and that she had actually slid down closer to him without being directed by Diddy. This is the first time we've heard of her engaging in any sort of sexual conduct that was not at the complete direction of Diddy. And I'm sure that we can expect on closing arguments that the defense is going to point to this to say that she did have some autonomy, some freedom, and that she was enjoying it. And that's where Donaldson was making the most ground in trying to establish that this was not a tortuous experience, but that she was somewhat enjoying it. Although when he pressed further, Donaldson said that he could not say for certain that she ever experienced an orgasm, And Donaldson certainly seemed to swing and miss when he was hoping to hear testimony to the contrary, because from the defense's perspective, they want testimony that she was enjoying herself and that she was doing this of her own volition. He also testified in defense's favor that she did not seem like she was on drugs, she did not seem like he was intoxicated. He never took drugs, meaning the Punisher never took drugs. He said he never saw Diddy take drugs. On redirect, he said that he's not experienced in assessing who's on drugs and who isn't, but at the end of the day, he hadn't seen anyone consuming drugs. So that's what we got from the Punisher. We ended up moving on to the final witness of the day, who was Special Agent Jake Gannon. He's the individual who oversaw the raid on Diddy's house down in Miami. Now, Diddy owns a private mansion, I would call it, at Two Star Island, and there was a raid that was conducted there in roughly a year ago. And at that point, there was a whole bunch of evidence that was seized in the form of what he brought up so far being high heels, lubricant, and gun accessories, gun parts, gun accessories. And there was a considerable period of time where he was basically walking through how the raid was conducted, that it was pursuant to a search warrant, and step-by-step procedures they took to engage in the raid in a way that is consistent with constitutional law, and describe the artifacts that they found, which, as I said, was essentially lube, guns, and lingerie, and high heels. And he's in the middle of detailing and presenting to the jury these different artifacts that they recovered from the Diddy raid, and that's where we ended up stopping for the day. That's my breakdown for this afternoon. I urge you to please like, share, and subscribe. You want more Diddy updates to follow this case. There is no place you're going to get coverage like you're getting over here. That's good logic. Till next time, tonight I'm going to be going in detail. I do a detailed breakdown in the evening. I drop 2 videos a day. Till next time, Godspeed.